My name is DwreckTV. And if you're expecting any kind of fat old, you're looking land whale with a big ass beard and a fake English accent and hopping around and smiling like he just discovered his first boner at 45 years old, you picked the wrong damn video, son! For the next 30 minutes, you're going to be seeing the most exciting and most incredible Nintendo 64 games that will walk God's green earth. Forget about your mammy-pammy PlayStations and your sissy-ass Sega Saturns, because the Nintendo 64 from 96 to 2001 was what it was. The fun system, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. So sit back and relax and enjoy the top 10 Nintendo 64 games, because that's the bottom line, because DwreckTV said so. Welcome back to another episode of DwreckTV. I'm Dwreck, and today is going to be talking about this bad boy right here, the top 10 Nintendo 64 games. Oh boy, where can I start with this thing? First off, as I've said before, Nintendo 64, this is my original one since Christmas 96, and since that day, the Nintendo 64 has been one of the most played systems I've ever owned, and probably one of my top favorites of all time. And also since then, I've had a lot of games. I rented a lot of games between me, my cousins, my best friends, and everything. It was just all around. It was a product of its time, most definitely. Because you guys think, 96 to 2001, that was definitely, that era was just on fire. As I say, the fires of excitement during this time. And it just couldn't, you just had to be there. But definitely, the Nintendo 64 combined with the PlayStation, it was definitely a fun time for games and just about almost everything during that time. Man, also, trying to come down to top 10 for Nintendo 64, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do top 10 because I played a lot of games on it. I've played like just about almost anything I could get my hands on it. I don't think I've ever played. I've played more games that I've liked on this system than I disliked. The games that I disliked on the N64 are like very few and far between. But trying to narrow down a top 10, I'd have to make like a top 20 or top 30. Because that's how many great games on the N64 that it had. Like, just pick up and play games that you can play by yourself, games that you can play with 4 players, 2 players, any kind of players you can think of. Just having 4 players, having your pals, your cousins, all come over, playing the freaking games all day and night, renting games from Blockbuster and having pizza parties and all that good stuff. There was just no comparison to it. It was absolutely good. It was absolutely cool. But that being said, I'm pretty sure everybody knows my top 10, especially from that 2-hour video that I did. But I did take some out and I did switch up a lot of things. So how does it stack up to that old one? Let's find out. But before we get to it, I got to go through the honorable mentions for the Nintendo 64. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because freaking, this is just honorable mentions. My God. All these freaking games. All these games I've played, like, absolutely incredible. But let's just get to, I'm just going to go through them. Honorable mention, number 1 is Mario Kart 64. I played this, I got this for my birthday in 97 when I was 12. And we played this all the freaking time. And also with my N64 games, I number them. So this is like the second game I ever got. So then next honorable mention is Clay Fighter. This was on the countdown, but I took it off for something else. We'll find out. This is also the third game I got. Absolutely fun. I've talked about it extensively. Another fun one is Cruising USA. There's also a 6th game I got. My dad convinced me to get this. At first, I did not want to play this, but because it was like, it's not really what I'm used to playing. But when I finally got it, I was like, this is actually fun. Even my dad liked playing this. It was a good arcade game. Another honorable mention, WWF Attitude. This is also the 9th game I got. I got this Christmas '99. I played this a lot, and I've created a whole bunch of people. I maxed out my memory card and everything, then switched over to ECW Hardcore Revolution. Real fun stuff. Next, WCW Mayhem, 11th game I got. Christmas 2000, I got this. Very fun. And Super Smash Brothers. I know this wasn't on the countdown, but that's just how many games that are. I have to make like a top 30. But definitely Smash Brothers, we've rated this a lot, and absolutely fun seeing all the characters on there. I've already talked a lot about it on a previous video, so y'all can check that out. And next, Banjo-Tooie. As much as I love Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, I love this game as well, but I didn't play it initially. I rented it from a local movie gallery around 2002, even when I had the PlayStation 2 and everything, but I really love it. I love Banjo-Tooie, but it's just very ambitious. Like, there's so many backtracking. It's like Banjo-Kazooie on steroids. But absolutely great game. Absolutely great. Another one is Jet Force Gemini. My cousin Max rented this a lot. This was the 24th game I got. I got this at a pawn shop. But very, very good game. This one, Yoshi's Story. My aunt had this one. The same aunt that had all those NES games. She had this. That was a fun one. And also, this was one of the very first games I played, along with Mario 64 and everything, was Wave Race 64. My cousin Max rented it, and it was absolutely very enjoyable. Dolphin Park and everything. The music on it was real good. Another one is Rampage. I like this one. My aunt had this one as well, and this was the 31st game I got from a pawn shop. Very enjoyable. Another one, my cousin Max rented it again, is Extreme G, and he also plays Extreme G too, a very fun racing game. And these two right here, my very first Japanese imports, is Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 and Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. This is the Japanese version to WCW World Tour. We played this a lot, me and my cousin Max and his friends. They was always picking Black Ninja, but that was very fun times, very fun. And also Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, very great pro wrestling game. Another one from cousin Max was San Francisco Rush. He rented this a lot. As much as I loved playing Girls in USA, he was playing San Francisco Rush a lot. And also one that we rented a lot was Killer Instinct Gold. Absolutely probably one of the funnest fighting games on that thing. And then finally from honorable mention is Conker's Bad Fur Day. I tried to rent it, but it was always sold out, and it was hard. It was like very hard to find because it came out during late in the N64's lifespan. I finally got it off eBay, and this is actually really fun. I really enjoyed this. Like, had I actually played it during those times, I would have definitely had this. All right, honorable mentions out the way. Like I said, I can make a whole top 30 for N64, but no top 30. Let's finally get into this. Let's get into the top 10 games for Nintendo 64.
Yo, listen up. We will not live in a two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction
or zig where we can zag.
We will walk through walls.
We will take a look around us.
We will not be confined.
We believe in the path of least limits.
We won't be told how to view the world.
We will experience true freedom.
We will not compromise. We will live the game through our hands.
We will be in control of something.
We will change the system.
And now, DwreckTV's Top 10 Nintendo 64 Games Radical! Number 10!
Mischief Makers. Mischief Makers was one of them games that not very many people heard of, but between me and my cousin Max, we rented this a lot, and this was definitely one of the best games I've played on the Nintendo 64. Reason being is because not only is the graphics are cool, the controls are good as well, and the music is great. The music on this game is very weird in that real cool way. But definitely, what makes Mischief Maker stand out from any other game on the N64 is that it was actually a side-scrolling game. There was not very many games on the N64 that was side-scrolling, but Mischief Makers was definitely one of those that was very unique in its style, its gameplay, the characters, and definitely the boss battles. In this game, you play Marina. She's a robotic girl, and she goes on a journey to save her creator. And at the same time, her planet's in the middle of a civil war from an evil emperor and his imperial forces. Almost everything in the game can be grabbed or shook, and she says shake, shake every time she does a shake move, but you'll definitely be hearing that throughout this entire game. Shake, shake is something that you'll be hearing a lot, you'll be saying a lot, you'll be thinking of it a lot. You'll probably think of it right now. The game has 5 worlds with 12 levels each, and some levels are all action and some are puzzle based. And as I said, the boss battles in this game are very cool, but definitely the ones that stand out the most are the beast sectors. There's Lunar, Tauros, and Mirko. This trio of guys are probably some of the coolest bosses that you'll see in a video game. When you fight Lunar, he's driving on a motorcycle, and then it morphs into a wolf. It's called Cerberus Alpha. When I first saw that, I was like, whoa, look at that. That was so cool. And the second one, Tauros, he's got Sasquatch Beta. It starts off as goes into an ape. And Mirko, he's got Phoenix Gamma, which is a big-ass flying top and everything. It turns into a freaking phoenix. And then towards the end, they form together to make this big old Megazord. And I was like, dude, how are we going to beat this? This is so freaking cool. But definitely, Mischief Makers is definitely one of them games. Like, if you don't know about it, then it's like you gotta tell your friends about it. But it's like if you know about Mischief Makers, it's like you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Mischief Makers, you know what I'm talking about. And Mischief Makers, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, but definitely Mischief Makers is definitely one of those. So cool obscure game. If you haven't played it, definitely check it out. And absolutely one of the coolest games I've played on the N64.
Number 9.
GoldenEye 007. When this game came out, everybody and their grandma was talking about this game. This game was just played so many times, it was rented so many times, everybody was having a freaking blast with this. Me and my cousin Max, we rented this a lot, and he had his pals over, I always had my pals over as well, and this also introduced me to the concept of first-person shooter. I never really played too many first-person shoot games at all, but when GoldenEye came out, it definitely introduced me to the concept of it, and it was very enjoyable. You go around playing James Bond, you go on missions, you go through the snow worlds, you go through silos, you go through factories, you go through piers, you go through dams. He just goes everywhere, even on trains. He's riding on tanks and everything, shooting bazookas. James Bond was the freaking man. The controls on it were pretty cool. Not really the kind of game I was used to at that time, but I kind of got used to it. But definitely what was cool about GoldenEye was the music. The music just definitely set the tone for the entire game, the entire environment. This game was definitely top notch as far as music goes. And especially with it being from Rare, yeah, Rare was the shit on the N64. And I know a lot of people say that the graphics on it are kind of primitive nowadays, but for 1997, the graphics on it were really cool. And especially going through the game on 4 players, going around shooting each other, trying to get the high score and everything. It was definitely a fun time. Definitely a lot of shit talking and everything, just having a real good time on weekends with pizza parties and everything. Absolutely. If you want to talk about a real party game on the N64, GoldenEye 007 is definitely the top notch of that, and I'll never forget it. That was absolutely real fun times.
Number 8.
Another fun one that was from my aunt, the same aunt that had the whole bunch of NES games. She had this, and I'd say this is definitely one of the most ambitious games I've ever played, and that is Donkey Kong 64. When I first heard of Donkey Kong 64, it was on a Nintendo Power videotape that had this and Jet Force Gemini. When I first played this at my aunt's house, I just thought this was definitely a very super cool game. It was like Donkey Kong Country on steroids. And you got, along with Donkey Kong, you got Diddy, Lanky, Tiny, and Chunky. And you play each and every one of them throughout the whole game. My goodness. And trying to play this game after not playing it for like months and months on end, you lose track very easy. Like, absolutely. If you don't have like a player's guide or a Nintendo Power with you on hand, you're definitely gonna lose track. But as far as it being like one of the most ambitious games I've ever played, the graphics were good, the sounds and the music are real good, and the music is very identical to what you would hear on Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. The characters and the graphics were really cool for late N64 days, and just absolutely a fun time, especially going through the overworld, going to all the worlds, trying to find all the collectibles to it, and even find the boss battles. My goodness, the boss battles in this game were just absolutely insane. No wonder why this game had to have the expansion pack on it, because my goodness, like definitely a huge game, like definitely huge for the N64. Like this game was so huge they needed that expansion pack on it. My goodness. But overall, Donkey Kong 64, absolutely a very fantastic game on the N64. Definitely, it pushed it beyond its limits, ladies and gentlemen. This game pushed the N64 beyond its limits, so they had to have the expansion pack. That's how big that game is. But definitely, very ambitious, very fun. I'll never forget it.
Number 7.
Another one that I've played a lot of between me and my cousin Max. My goodness. That is Diddy Kong Racing. When we played Diddy Kong Racing, we thought that this was just more than just a racing game. This was an adventure. You got Diddy, you got Crunch, the alligator, Conker the squirrel, Timber the tiger, Banjo the bear, Tip Tup the turtle, Pipsy the mouse, the list goes on and on. This game was just an absolute blast, and especially with the Nintendo Power VHS promo, oh my goodness, that sold us on this. But this game, you go through 4 or 5 worlds, and you race on go-karts, hovercrafts, and planes. This was racing like we've never seen before at all. Diddy Kong Racing was definitely, comparatively speaking to a game like Mario Kart 64, this game just absolutely blew it out the water. And the adventure aspects to it would just pushed it further. Race all the tracks, you get golden balloons, you go to the worlds, and then you gotta go through a silver coin challenge all over again, racing bosses, and then racing the final boss, Whizpig. Dude, Whizpig was pretty cool. And the boss races were pretty cool too, but it just kept getting harder and harder, and then you go to Future Funland, like that was like, whoa. But definitely, Diddy Kong Racing, absolutely one of my all-time favorites on the N64 and of all time. One of my favorite racing games of all time. I'll never forget it. And y'all ain't never played Diddy Kong Racing, y'all gotta get on the N64. And also check out the Nintendo Power VHS promo. That was some of the funniest stuff you're ever gonna see.
Number 6.
Oh man. Next up, you want to talk about excitement. You want to talk about getting rowdy on the weekends. You want to talk about freaking getting your pals together and just have absolute mayhem. Look no further than WCW NWO Revenge. When this game came out in late 98, WCW and the WWF was just on fire. More on fire than they ever were during the Hulkamania and New Generation eras. My goodness, WCW NWO Revenge was just one of the absolute funnest wrestling games you will ever play. This game's got everybody on it. It's got everybody from WCW. It's got the NWO. It's got the Wolfpack. It's got Raven's Flock. It's got the Cruiserweights. This game just had everybody. Everybody that you can think of. Everybody from Hollywood Hogan. Everybody from Kevin Nash, Goldberg, Diamond Dallas Page, Raven, all the way down to guys like Chavo Guerrero Jr., Chris Jericho, Alex Wright, Ultimo Dragon. Everybody, just about, even Lodi was in the game, and Kidman during his early days. This game had almost everybody. My goodness. And going through tag teams, hitting everybody with weapons and everything. Just an absolute blast. And definitely one of my favorite wrestling games on the N64, because this was definitely it. If you was a WCW fan during this time like I was, and like so many others, especially playing as Goldberg and DDP and everybody else, and Kevin Nash and Macho Man and everything, just the whole, you can go from top to bottom, everybody played everybody on this game, and This was definitely one of my favorite games of all time on the N64. I'll never forget it, and absolute blast.
Number 5!
Just when you thought WCW NWO Revenge was the top tier of the pro wrestling games on the N64, well, what could possibly top it? And look no further than 2000's WWF No Mercy. When No Mercy came out, it just took pro wrestling games to a whole nother level as far as gameplay wise, creative wise, things that you can do in this game. It just surpassed everything that was remotely possible. Not only did it have a very immersive storyline, it had a big ass battle royal mode called survival mode where you unlock people through it. You can have hardcore matches, you can go backstage, you can fight backstage in this game. You can fight in the locker room, the corridors, you can fight in the boiler room, a bar room, and even the parking lot. This game was just an absolute blast. Playing with my pals, especially playing with Robert and Duke in this game, we created our people. I created my Ace Carrero character, they created their guys, and we were just having absolute fun, just wrecking shop through the whole freaking roster. You not only do you can play as WWF guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and Triple H, and The Undertaker, and Mankind, and all that, but you can also create guys that was from WCW Revenge. You can create ECW guys. You can create guys from All Japan, New Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah. This game had it all, especially during the time when in 2000 going into 2001 when the WCW got bought out by the WWF. Even with ECW, just putting them on the game and everything, it was like, dude, this game just had it all. And with so many people and so many modders online that want to recreate this game and everything, it's like, why couldn't they just go forward with this whole gaming engine, you know? Because it's easy to pick up, it's easy to learn. Anybody can practically play this game and just have an absolute blast. But no, they want to go with that watered down SmackDown engine and everything for like years and years. But definitely, WWF No Mercy, the Aki engine was at its peak. It's duplicated so many times, imitated so many times, it will never be preceded. And if there ever is a game that ever precedes this game, I welcome it, because playing No Mercy for like the last 20 something years has gotten old. And thankfully they got Fire Pro Wrestling World, but definitely No Mercy was definitely the top tier wrestling game on the N64, and I welcome a predecessor.
Number 4!
Empty. Y'all give me a second. Much better. Now, number 4 on the countdown is definitely one of the funnest games I've played on the N64. I played it through my cousin Max, and he had the Nintendo Power promo video of it, and it was very hilarious. Star Fox 64. When we played Star Fox 64, we just thought this was one of the best, one of the most incredible games we had ever played. It took everything from the first Star Fox and just turned the freaking volume up on every possible turn. The graphics were incredible on it, the sound was great, the controls were great, flying through the air in the R-Wings, going through the planets of Corneria, going through outer space and the underwater, going through the meteor showers and everything, going through the desert. This game was just an absolute blast. You play as Fox McCloud and you got his wingman like Falco, Slippy, Peppy. Y'all go through all the sectors of the Lilas system trying to get to Planet Venom and finally take down Andros. And also along the way you fight off the Star Wolf team. Those guys were a freaking... But absolutely, this game was just so cool, very immersive, very incredible, just absolutely incredible. And also one of the biggest selling points of this whole game was definitely the Rumble Pack. When the Rumble Pack came out with Star Fox 64, this was like an absolute game changer. You put it into your controller and everything. You got the batteries in it, and it's got a force feedback device that lets you feel the game. This was like unheard of during '97. When you put the rumble pack on and you shooting everybody, you feeling the rumble through your controller, like you were in the game. You were in the cockpit of the R-Wing. You was in the cockpit of the Landmaster and even the Blue Marine. You felt the game, and it was absolutely incredible. But definitely Star Fox 64, one of the best games on the N64 that we've ever played. An absolute blast. Having sleepovers and everything and trying to find the different paths to take and everything. You talk about just absolute fun times.
Number 3.
We're getting a top 3 now. This one got bumped up from my last countdown, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Because out of all the games that I've played on the N64, this is like in my top 3. This game right here that I'm holding in my hands was just an absolute phenomenon. One of the absolute best games I've ever played. Even though it's number 3, we'll get to 2 and 1 for a second, but I just gotta shed light on this game right here. Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time. The Ocarina of Time, it felt more than just a game. This felt like a movie. This felt like an absolute blockbuster of a movie that just defined the generation. The best example I could come up with for Ocarina of Time, comparatively speaking, would be the movie Titanic. As big as the movie of Titanic was in late 97 going into 98, Ocarina of Time just felt that big of a deal. But in the game, you start off as a kid, and then you go through all the trials and tribulations that you go through. Then you become adult Link, going through the Temple of Time, and then you gotta fight through all the dungeons and fight off all the enemies, save all the sages, and then save Princess Zelda. And then you go on to fight Ganondorf in the castle, and then you finally fight Ganondorf's beast form, Ganon. But absolutely, one of the most important games for the N64. One of the best games ever. If you ain't ever played this game, definitely play it on the N64. This was absolutely one of the best, one of the most phenomenal games you'll ever play. The controls on the game were very good. The graphics were absolutely incredible. The characters were incredible. Everybody from the top tier characters all the way down to Rito and Malin and Talon and everybody else. You can ride horseback, you can go fishing. This game just had it all. And one of the biggest things of this game was the music. The soundtrack of this game is just absolutely beautiful. The music in this game is just absolutely fantastic. And definitely one of the best soundtracks on the Nintendo 64. Definitely during that time, especially like comparatively speaking, this is like the Titanic of video games. Just a big deal. Everybody was talking about it. And it was just an absolute phenomenon.
Number 2.
Now we're getting the top 2. This one was tough between number 1 and number 2. 2 of these games are 2 of the absolute best games I've played on the N64 and of all time. So picking what would be number 1 and number 2 for this one was very tough, but I've made my decision to it. And number 2 of the top 10 was also the very first game I've ever played on the N64, and that being Super Mario 64. When I first heard of Super Mario 64, my mother told me about it. She told me around 96, she said, "Have you heard of Nintendo 64? I said, "No, I haven't." And she told me that it was going to be the next Nintendo system, and the next Mario game was going to be called Super Mario 64. At first, I was kind of confused on it, like, why Mario 64? And then we wound up going to Blockbuster one day, and I saw that they had the kiosk for the N64 and Mario 64. I thought this was like really cool, so I like the controller I saw was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and I was like, this is super cool. And when I play it, and I was playing on the D-pad and Mario wasn't moving, I was like, why is he not moving? And they said, yeah, use the joystick. Oh, the joystick. So I was playing around and everything with Mario on the Mario 64 with the joystick. I thought it just blew my mind away. Like, I thought this was like absolutely super cool. You're going all over, you're going up and down all around, you're just going in circles and everything. Like, it was an absolute game changer. And this was like the big deal. So I thought this was so cool. Got Nintendo 64, Christmas 96 with Mario 64. I was like, oh yeah, it's on now. And then we hooked it up and everything. I just immediately started playing this game. I was like an absolute blast. The memories I've made in that courtyard, in the castle, was just absolute timeless. All the stuff that we was coming up with, me and my cousin Max, we was coming up with our own stories because we thought that Mario 64 was going to get a cartoon, but it didn't. So we was coming up with our own stuff. That lasted for like a good year or two, but definitely one of the funnest times I've ever had with this game. But other than that, this game was just an absolute game changer. It introduced everybody to what 3D Roman platforming games could do in the future and everything. But the graphics on it, some people would say the graphics would be primitive comparatively speaking nowadays. But in 96 going into 97, this was an absolute game changer. This was absolutely incredible. The things that Mario can do, going from jumping off walls, doing double jumps, doing triple jumps, swimming, flying in the air with the wing cap, and then jumping through paintings, going to the worlds, trying to find the superstars, and trying to find all the stars in the world and everything, and trying to fight Bowser 3 times. And fighting Bowser in this game was just blew my mind. It just opened my imagination to what these games could be. Like, my imagination was just running wild with this game. But absolutely, Super Mario 64, one of the best games I've ever played, one of the most incredible games I've ever played. Definitely between me, my cousin Max and Roy, and my friends Robert and Duke, we just had an absolute blast with this game, going back and forth trying to get all the stars and everything. This was definitely my number one because of how much of an impact it was for me and everything. But what could possibly have topped this game?
And now, number one!
And now, number one. What could have possibly beat all these games? What could have beat Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Star Fox 64, No Mercy, the list goes on and on, even the honorable mentions. What could have possibly be number one? It's right here, and it's definitely one of the best, most important games I've ever played in my life. Banjo-Kazooie. Banjo-Kazooie, when this game came out, when it was announced, I just thought that this game was going to be a big deal. Even though he started off as a side character on Diddy Kong Racing, I just had a feeling that his adventures were going to be bigger than anyone could have ever imagined. And when I finally played the game, I just thought this was one of the most fantastic adventures I have ever gone on in a video game. Much like how in Mario 64, you go through the witch's lair, and you go through all the worlds, and you find the puzzle pieces and music notes to advance to the other worlds. But what set Banjo-Kazooie apart from Mario 64, as much as Mario 64 set the standard for 3D platformers on the N64 and going forward, Banjo-Kazooie just took that standard and just skyrocketed it to new standards. Just about everything about this game I was just absolutely fell in love with. I love the characters to it. I love the controls to it, the environments, the music to it. Just absolutely everything about it. It was just an absolute adventure. And I absolutely love this game. I can play this game from start to finish. I know where everything's at. I know where the music notes and the jigsaw pieces are and everything. And going through all the worlds like Clanker's Cavern and Mumbo's Mountain and Mad Monster Mansion, Freezeezy Peak, all the worlds. I absolutely love this game. Like from top to bottom, inside and out. this game was just an absolute blast. One of the best games I've ever played, and definitely number one. Definitely number one for the N64, and definitely in my top 3 greatest games I've ever played. And so there you have it. This is all top 10 of Dwreck's top 10 Nintendo 64 games. All right here. Definitely, Nintendo 64 was one of the best systems I've ever played on. And it was just a real fun time. So there you have it. Top 10 for the N64. Hope y'all enjoyed it. So, as the flames of excitement start to extinguish from the waters and the reigns of the dolphin, what could have possibly came after it? Well, y'all just going to have to wait till the next time. So, until then, this is Dwreck signing out. See y'all on the flip side.